OK, time now for the latest business news, and Stephen Carroll joins me in the studio. Good morning, Stephen.
Hi, Rochelle.
Now, we're starting with the dollar, which has taken a tumble after some comments from the US president.
Donald Trump says the dollar has become too strong because of public confidence in him as president. Speaking to the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Trump warned that a strong greenback could ultimately hurt the United States. The dollar dropped sharply after those comments, although it's pared some of those losses in trading since then, particularly towards the start of the European session. In the same interview, Donald Trump says the US government will now not label China a currency manipulator, despite repeatedly promising to do so in the past. China's been accused of keeping its currency value low to make its exports cheaper abroad. Anka Ula has more.
On the campaign trail, Donald Trump was quick to criticize China, vowing to name the country a currency manipulator on his first day in the White House.
We have a great president.
I think you have to do something to rein in China. They devalued their currency today. They're making it absolutely impossible for the United States to compete. How can we compete? They continuously cut their currency. They devalue their currency, and I've been saying this for years. They've been doing it for years. This isn't just starting. This was the largest devaluation they've had in 2 decades.
Trump's first day in office came and went without any action on China's alleged currency manipulation. On Wednesday, the president of the United States completely changed his tune. Trump told the Wall Street Journal that China is not a currency manipulator, adding that the US dollar is in fact too strong and would hurt the economy.
They're not currency manipulators. I think our dollar is getting too strong, and partially that's my fault because people have confidence in me. But that's hurting, that will hurt ultimately. It's very, very hard to compete when you have a strong dollar and other countries are devaluing their currency.
He still, however, raised the concern of China's trade surplus with the U.S., which reached nearly $18 billion this month compared to $10 billion in February. Last year, the U.S. imported nearly $480 billion from China. The U.S. Treasury has a blacklist for currency manipulators, which subjects them to investigations and trade sanctions. China last made it onto the list in 1994. It was known for buying foreign currencies, particularly the US dollar, to push them higher against the yuan.
Well, let's take a look at what's happening on the stock markets next. Here in Europe, we've got shares starting the day down. Still worries over the French elections and dominating much investor worries today at the opening of the European session. Paris, London and Frankfurt all opening in the red. Shares in the French retailer Carrefour, though, up at the start of trading, around 0.2% after their results, showing sales growth slowing down in France and their other main markets. Over in Asia, Japanese shares had taken a hit on the weaker dollar. That makes their exports more expensive. The Nikkei in Tokyo finishing the day down just almost 0.2%. Gains, though, across Shanghai, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong and the Kospi in Seoul.
Right, turning next to United Airlines, which are still dealing with the fallout from that viral video that which showed a passenger being dragged from the plane. United is now offering compensation to all of the passengers that were travelling on that flight. The video of Mr. David Dow being dragged from the plane on Sunday at Chicago's O'Hare Airport has been viewed around the world. In a statement, the airline said it realised the passengers did not have a good travel experience on United and wanted to compensate them for that. Julia Cummings was one of those on board.
Really just disbelief. I couldn't believe it was happening. I have never seen anything like that before. I've never been on a plane being asked to volunteer my seat up when you're buckled in. So that was unusual.
Meanwhile, the boss of United has promised the incident will never be repeated. Oscar Munoz has come under fire for his handling of the controversy. He now says that no other passenger, once seated, will be ejected from United flights.
As I've outlined in some of my messaging, is really around reviewing a fairly deep and thorough review of a lot of our policies that support this. Specifically, if I were to be here today as I am, I would tell you that the use of law enforcement aboard an aircraft has to be looked at very carefully. They're clearly there for a purpose of safety, and we want to make sure they protect us. But for other reasons, I think that's a policy we have to absolutely relook at.
OK, and finally, Stephen, a new way to get deliveries in California. Tell us about that.
This will be the end of the bike courier delivering food. In San Francisco, services like Yelp, Eat24 are trying out robots to make deliveries to customers. The robots can travel distances of up to around 2.5 kilometres. The apps are offering some customers the option to have their food delivered by robot without an extra cost. It does mean no tipping when your food arrives, of course, although for now the robots are being accompanied by humans to keep them in line. So you may have ended up with an awkward situation where you're not tipping the robot and the person beside them is looking at you awkwardly.
Indeed, Stephen. Thank you very much for that. Stephen Carroll there with the business update.